Each year, the OPC president has the honor of choosing one person who exemplifies the principles the club stands for: an unflagging commitment to the highest ideals of journalism and storytelling, staunch support for and mentoring of the next generation of journalists, and bravery and fortitude in telling the most difficult stories. I could not think of a more deserving person than the late Christopher Dickey, a long time and much cherished OPC board member who we lost suddenly in July 2020 at the age of 68. Many of you knew Chris far better than me. He was the Paris-based world news editor for the Daily Beast. He was a foreign correspondent for the Washington Post and Newsweek in Mexico, Central America, the Middle East, Africa, and the Balkans. He wrote 7 books, including a memoir, Summer of Deliverance, about his relationship with his father, the poet and novelist James Dickey. But more than any of that, he was a gifted storyteller, photographer, Renaissance man, and bon vivant. The OPC has tried to honor his memory and legacy with several events. One, in conjunction with Photoville, is a banner showing some of his photographs and his life story. It's on display at Brooklyn Bridge Park here in New York until December 1, and I encourage you to go and take a look. We held an online panel discussion featuring former colleagues and editors. And so we wanted to do this one last bit and thank him for everything that he left us by giving him the President's Award posthumously. The consensus among those who knew him well or just briefly is that he was one of a kind. We miss him greatly. Please watch this short video about Chris, compliments of NBC.
We received some horrible and sad news today about an American in Paris, our man in Paris, in fact. Christopher Dickey was a friend of ours. He was a frequent guest of ours here, often from his perch high above the Champs-Élysées with the Arc de Triomphe in the background. Always live, which meant getting up insanely early just to talk with us and our audience was always richer for the experience and his knowledge. Chris Dickey was the real deal, you see, a journalist in full. One of those great and curious storytellers who seemed to know just about everything and everyone. He covered, by my count, every war there was over the last couple of decades, from Central America to Africa and the Balkans to the Persian Gulf. He started at the Washington Post, later was Paris editor at, as we now call it, the old Newsweek. He cared way more about journalism than Newsweek's owners, and after its 3rd sale, he became world news editor at the Daily Beast, mentoring a ton of writers along the way. He was a clear-eyed patriot. As he saw it, love of country meant holding us to account, all of us. And we found him in a melancholy mood when he last appeared here back in May, watching the news from home in his Paris apartment, which that day included armed pro-Trump protesters storming the Michigan State House.
Well, I think images like that crystallize exactly what Europeans think about the worst of America, the worst craziness of America, the white supremacy, the guns, all of that. But we're talking about a relatively small number of people there. The bigger problem is that the United States has essentially abdicated leadership at the moment of the greatest global crisis in living memory. And that is a real problem. This is a kind of situation where you would have expected the U.S. to take the lead, to be out in front, to be doing things better than anybody else. Even a few months ago, pandemic studies showed that the U.S. was the best prepared country in the world. But in fact, we've shown no leadership in the United States. It's a disastrous situation. We are leading the world in deaths from this disease, and we'll have tens of thousands more before this is over.
That was from May 1st, and sadly, for the record, sadly for all of us, he was right. Christopher Dickey was the son of the legendary Southern writer James Dickey, former poet laureate of the United States. James Dickey wrote the novel Deliverance. He had a bit part as the sheriff in the movie. When the photo was taken with his incredibly cool son Chris on the right, looking for all the world like period Bob Dylan, Chris wrote a great book called Summer of Deliverance about that summer with his very complicated father, one of 7 books that Chris Dickey authored. He had the best words. He also took and posted a ton of photos, like the sidewalk at 30 Rock, where there were still people there last fall before an appearance on the air with us, and the sidewalk in Paris, posted just hours before he died. Our friend, the talented Mr. Dickey, was 68 years old when he died of heart failure in Paris. We want to express our condolences to his family. We urge all of you to read what he wrote and left behind for all of us.
Chris's son James is here to receive the President's Award Certificate on behalf of his father and his family. Welcome, James.
So thank you very much to the OPC for recognizing my father's lifetime of dedication to being a foreign correspondent. I'm going to share with you very briefly one of his favorite stories that I think absolutely highlights what it means to be a journalist. In the early 1980s, in his first assignment as the Washington Post bureau chief to Mexico City, covering Central America at a highly controversial time, he sat down with the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to El Salvador. And the U.S. ambassador started to tell him about all of the things that were wrong with U.S. policy towards El Salvador, about how this wasn't working and these policies weren't working out, and how these personalities were interfering with their ability to get the job done in terms of forwarding U.S. policy in the region. And my father actually stopped him and said, "Wait. Why are you telling me this?" And the ambassador said, "I write this in a cable. I send it off to Washington. It goes onto the desk for an undersecretary, and it will never be seen again. I tell you, and it goes on the front page of the Washington Post. And action happens." And that, among many other reasons, is why my father did what he did, and why he was so happy to be part of this organization and to help mentor the next generation and hopefully the generation after that of journalists who will continue to go around the world telling the truth as they see it so that the world will make better decisions. Thank you very much.